Welcome to another episode of Will's Personal Development Podcast. We're going to make this a short episode because I haven't done an episode yet, and I think this is a very valuable topic, but I'm also really strapped for time since I also have a blog to run, an email list, a separate YouTube channel with different content, and then my full-time job and all sorts of other stuff. That being said, I think this is a really important, valuable topic, and I think it could provide a lot of value. So the long and short of it is I worked with a life coach that was pretty expensive, but I think it was worth it. And he helped me with a certain set of ways of looking at yourself and your thoughts that no one else had really presented me with that toolkit. Therapists, dating coaches, other people never really had this toolkit. I hadn't really heard it that much in the personal development space. So I don't know how he developed it, but I thought it was pretty useful. In fact, a lot of the other coaches I've seen, they tend to be very, at least nowadays, very tactical with their advice. Let's say, for example, with dating advice, it's usually very tactical, at least nowadays. There's not much like internal work that's recommended. It's more so like be confident, be expressive, be loud, be funny, be enthusiastic, have more fun, lead the girl, build attraction first by subtly bragging or showing off certain things about you that make you a leader or high status, or show high status, but don't show it off so you're not bragging. These are all examples of tactical things that are often recommended. Even like the more, soft feminine dating coaches, a lot of it's tactical, but just like more focused on being genuine or more playful and teasing. And I think it's partially because this works for a lot of people. But the issue is whether you're focused on dating or not, there's going to be a portion of people who this advice just doesn't work for. And it's probably because it works for people who are pretty mentally healthy. They didn't have much trauma or issues going on. And, there's not a bunch of junk and mental garbage in their head affecting things. Now, you don't need to go through severe trauma to have these issues. It can be small things that just add up over time. Things like, let's say you were bullied in school lightly, it was not like you were abused or, you went through a war, but small things like that, bullying, your parents, not being ideal parents, maybe just being like a little too focused on academics or just being too high pressure on you. All these little things can add up over time. Maybe you're just really unpopular in school, and every day during lunch, you just felt really out of place because no one wanted to sit by you. These things can add up over days, weeks, months, and years to create certain inner dialogues that govern your entire life. So oftentimes you have these inner loops and stories you tell yourself running for decades in your head based off all these things that are out of your control. How your parents raised you, the words your parents used, the mindsets and beliefs, your parents, your religion, your culture, your upbringing, all that stuff came together to kind of create who you are and how you think about the world. So I bring this up because my coach actually helped me through this. Now, I'm not going to give away his whole toolkit because, that's his work and, he's being paid for it. But I do think that the general principles of what I learned are so helpful that I do want to help other people in case they run into something like this, because it could be helpful for them. So the basic idea is, first off, you identify moments where you're having more difficulty. Usually like this is in some type of social gathering, but it could be just like, this can definitely be applied to business. It's like, if you're going through a lawsuit, or maybe your business is going down the drain, or you're fighting some legal battle in business or something like that, you write down first all the thoughts you have, and then you write down in a different column in some type of journal the reality of the situation. And the reality is defined as anything that's like a fact. It's verifiable. It can be proven in the court of law. So when you have these two rows and you just brain dump, what you'll find is there's there's the reality, the facts, and then there's a bunch of things that are debatable that you are kind of mixing with reality to create what you think is real or not real. And basically how you see the world is through these rose-colored glasses. So, for example, some of the things you would put in a reality column, let's say just say like in a social setting would be like, I walked up to a group of people at a party. I talked to them. Some of them said some stuff back. Some were more receptive and interesting. Others were not really interesting and they didn't want to talk to me and they were not interested in talking to me. So those are arguably facts. I mean, even the interested and interested thing is not. So I would actually hone that down a bit. So you may get something just like that's just pure fact in the reality column. Like I talked to some girls at the party. They said some stuff back. They walked away. These two did not really ask me any questions back, and then they walked away. So those are the facts. But then there's all sorts of things that are kind of theory, opinions, or just the stories you tell yourself that go in the thoughts column. And this is really where your fantasy can just go out of control. And so this really helped me identify a whole whirlwind of negative thoughts that I didn't even knew I was having. Many of which were associated to my past and how I thought of myself and all this culture and stuff and decades of stuff that had probably built those things up. So there are a bunch of thoughts I was unaware of that now I'm more aware of them and I can crystallize, I can tackle. And this is something that even something like meditation, which is a big thing in personal development nowadays online, it really didn't help me become aware of them as much as this. Granted, I'm not a consistent practicer of meditation. I'm more of an inconsistent meditator. I'm trying to be more consistent, but still, like, I was not aware and specifically aware of those thoughts and exactly what they were saying. But then when I journaled them all after like a event where I just felt like I didn't do as well or it didn't go the way I wanted it to, then I can kind of journal this and identify, okay, what's going on here and what can I do better to essentially make this work. So with all that being said, what's the final result of this? And by the way, the coach goes into more detail and into stuff where we actually explore our past and identify where these things come from. So once again, I'm not even going to mention the coach's name or anything. I'm not trying to pitch him. The point really is to kind of get your brain thinking about some stuff. Anyhow, what ended up happening is when I do these journaling exercises, when they do come up, and you can apply this to anything, a networking event for work or something related to relationships in your life, what you end up finding is essentially that there are some things that just are false. There's stories you tell themselves, you don't know for sure if they're true, and then you really start to move forward and you piece away and address and start to slowly chip away at the things that are just false stories you tell yourself, or at least debatable stories, and then you create a better state of mind where you come in aware of what state of mind you want to be in, what emotions you want to have, and then essentially move forward and express to the world. So for example, for me, I would say I'm definitely an overthinker, over worrier, and through this exercise I was able to identify common themes with the flurry of negative thoughts I often have. And that's just me. I mean, some people are just really confident, or they're not even thinkers. They're not worried at all. Yeah, some people There's a saying out there on the web that the lower your IQ, the better you do with women because you're just not in your head. The really smart, high IQ people are just overthinking everything and always worried, whereas like the dumb person just has a blank mind and seems confident, which girls like. And there's probably some truth to that. So, point being, there's a bunch of negative thoughts. I'm not saying I'm smart. I'm just saying I worry a lot. And so through that exercise, I was able to identify a bunch of things that I was worried about, self-conscious of, being, for example, alone in a social setting where no one's talking to me. And in those types of settings, if I can't get someone to talk to me or everyone's busy, I get really flustered because I don't want to look to others like a loser or something like that. So there's stuff like this that just kind of leads to a bunch of overthinking in my head when, that thought, that belief system is debatable. It's not a reality-based thing that I could put in the reality column. Just because I'm alone and not talking to anyone doesn't mean that the friends that I have there or the people there even notice me. And if they do notice me, then there's no guarantee that they're thinking, oh, that guy's a loser. I mean, they could totally just be like, oh, that's Will. He's cool. I mean, he's just, chilling there on his own for now, and that's fine. So it really just breaks out a bunch of things that for me, I have to worry about that I wasn't even aware about that was going on like a whirlwind or hurricane in my head. So for me, it's just to give you a few more examples, it could be like, people are super, or people are self-conscious because that guy's alone, or people think I'm socially uncalibrated because I get really awkward when I'm alone and I don't know who to talk to, so I start to spin around. Or, oh, does that guy not like me because the conversation was short? Or, oh, I am just self-conscious of the whole situation since I don't know anyone here. Or, oh, that person didn't want to talk to me much or wasn't really engaging. They must not like me, or I must be boring to them. So these types of thoughts can also even create what's called a self-fulfilling prophecy, where the more you think that this may be true, the more you kind of fulfill that in a way because you act in ways that kind of make it worse, and kind of make you more nervous and then make you seem that way. So unfortunately, this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy stuff, you really have to watch out for that. And so that's essentially the topic and end of the episode. Really think it through. I'm sure like you can apply this to many areas of your life and really grow and just evolve through learning more about it and applying it to your life. Now, for some of y'all, you're good to go because you have good mental health. You don't have much from your past, not much baggage from your past. You're confident, you're calm, and good for you. But I would argue everyone has situations where this will apply to them. Even with all that stuff, maybe in your career, on a very stressed out day, all of a sudden you start flowing through all these scripts or beliefs or fantasies or ideas about how the world works or what's going on, and then you have to break it down into that reality and fantasy column. So I think it's really useful, especially the part about differentiating fantasy from reality, because there's only some things that are verifiable, and then the rest are just guesses. They're probabilities and sometimes interpretations that are never verifiable. Just because someone walked away from you and didn't want to talk to you may mean a flurry of things. Maybe they had a boyfriend and they just didn't want to mention it and they wanted to be loyal, or they were having a bad day, or a family member passed away and they just don't feel like talking to people, but they were dragged out to this event. Or Maybe this person doesn't like you, or they do like you, but they just have a weird way of expressing it, and just because they walked away or they didn't want to talk to you much doesn't mean that they don't like you. They just had a lot on their mind that day and they didn't uh, express it well. So there's all sorts of things that are very subject to interpretation, especially with social interactions. And so the best you can do is not shoot yourself in the foot further by letting your mind go haywire. Hopefully you found this valuable. Let me know your thoughts. You can find me on my blog, dreamlifelab.org. And thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.